All right, so Jared, you were super emotional when you sat down to talk with Julie after your
Yeah,
second time walking out of the house. The tears were flowing, the
yeah.
waterworks were everywhere. What was going on there, my man?
Walking into that house was a new experience for me, and obviously leaving the house wasn't so new. It was my second time doing it. I'm not sure if anybody pulled that off, but walking out for the second time was it was just bittersweet. You leave the house, you figure that it's all over for you, and more than anything, just knowing that I'm leaving my mom behind really just got to me.
I mean, she's got some experience in these matters. She's got a little experience. She might be all right. We'll get into that. Let's go into some stuff in the house. Let's get, obviously we got to get back into that big blow up you had with Cory, the most probably dramatic moment of the season.
Oh
As
yeah,
that was happening and other people are talking and they're putting things together,
yeah.
could you just feel your game slipping away in that moment?
Oh, for sure. I knew that almost immediately after that if I wasn't to win the next comp, that I would have been out the door that week regardless. I knew that from that conversation on, my game was going to be an uphill battle, but it's what I prepared myself for. I honestly was happy that it started later in the game rather than earlier. I felt like I had a break, not necessarily a break, but I felt like I had a decent road moving up into that point. And then after for that, at that point for me, it was just like kind of the game is really on now because one slip up and I knew I was out the door. So
What was your so the game starts to unravel a little bit at that point because other people are starting to put things together now. You get voted out. We'll get into that. You get back in the house. What's your plan if you had stayed? Let's just play it out and let's say Cameron can't get that ball in that zombie hand and you're in the house
yeah.
right now. What's your plan moving forward?
Oh man, I was gonna gun for that next HOH with everything I had, and the moment that I was to secure it, I wasn't too sure. I wasn't too sold on either or, but I knew that I had four targets in mind. That being Cory, Jag, Matt, and definitely Mama Felicia. As much as I love their, I feel like they played a huge part in the downfall of my game. Obviously, Jag and Matt just pretty much were the nights to secure that loss for me at the end, but without Mama Felicia and Cory driving that into their heads, I don't think that my game would have went that way.
Tell me about the sort of the argument you, Felicia, and your mom all had together there. You were trying to keep Izzy. That's what she's saying to you. You did it to me, but then she's trying to, get you out of the house. Tell me about you three having to go through that whole thing and where you all stood after that.
It was a weird argument for me because it was like, obviously I couldn't explain my exact reason for wanting to keep Izzy over Mama Felicia, and I know Mama Felicia had a really special bond with me, and so did I. But I made a real special promise to Izzy very early on when she told me that she knew who I was and knew that I was Cerie's son. And I told her that as long as she kept that secret, I'll keep her as long as possible, even if it's to the detriment of my game. And I think I followed that all the way through to the end. And getting into that argument with Mama Felicia, I just wanted to make sure to stay composed regardless because I had too much love for Mama Felicia to get into a screaming match with her. And I understood where she was coming from. I try to just be very understanding through it all and realize that, people have their own perspectives of what's going on in here. And, to an extent, I understand why she did what she did.
You were pretty upset with Blue for not giving you a heads up that you would have been the target of Cory won HOH. Did that change your relationship with her a bit after learning that?
If anything, I feel like it probably just made our relationship a bit stronger. It definitely felt, in the moment, it was hard for me not to feel jaded about it by, last minute information. Not only like was it just last minute information, but it's just like finding out and walking out at the same time was kind of just one of those things that just hit home a little different. I was blessed enough to walk back in and be able to have conversations where to figure out exactly where this was coming from. And like I said, I try to be understanding through it all, and I try to find my part in it. I don't really want to sit here and try to point fingers at anybody because I know that a big part of my downfall was myself, and obviously I had certain secrets in here that I just couldn't divulge to anybody, and I felt like that also hindered my game a little bit. But it is what it is.
Well, it's interesting that you guys, you're not the first couple to have a showmance in the house, but it was interesting that you guys had that, but that you were kind of working with different people, like, right? Like in the house. So now that, I mean, have you guys discussed any potential future outside the house? What are those, what does that look like?
Oh yeah, for sure. I was supposed to be moving to LA, and Blue was definitely telling me she can't wait to get out and see me in LA and take me to all of her fun spots. And she wants me to go meet her mom. Like I said, I never like to jinx the future or anything, so I always leave it open. But I'm looking forward to seeing her on the outside of here for sure.
Let's talk about other people maybe outside the house. Cory in his goodbye message said he wanted to
Yeah.
be friends outside the house. Where are you with that?
Yes. For sure. As I told Julie last night, between anybody in that house, it was hard. While you're in that house, it's very hard to separate game and personal. And as much as I said this whole season that I wanted to, it was a hard task for me to do on a daily basis. But now that I'm finally out, I'm released from the pressure of the pressure cooker of a house that is. I love absolutely every soul in that house, and I can't wait to see them. Honestly.
You mentioned your 4 targets. If you had stayed, America's name was not on that list. She seemed pretty giddy to see you go in that goodbye message. What did you make of that?
In my eyes, America just wasn't a big factor for my game. I wasn't really too worried about America making a big move against me. I knew that if any move that she was going to make was probably going to be through Cory. So therefore, I think if I was to neutralize Cory in the game, that America wasn't going to be somebody I had to worry about too much moving forward. So that's why she wasn't necessarily on that list. But if I had a fifth or even a sixth at that point, she'll definitely be taking that spot.
You had such a unique experience, man, Jared, because what's it like playing the game with your mom? Obviously a huge asset, obviously, just to first of all have
Yes.
someone that close to you, also a huge asset to have someone with tons of experience in a game like this, but
Yes.
also, your mom. And maybe sometimes people need a little space to do their own thing, especially when
Yeah.
romance might be involved. So tell me what that whole experience in terms of game and personal was like for you.
Tell me about it. Honestly, it was a bit easier to separate from my mom than I thought it was, just because once again, her experience, she knew exactly how people would feel. She knew how people would perceive things, and she foreseen things that I just would not have been able to see on my own. So very early on, she made sure to separate from me, and she did a really good job at doing it, almost to the point where I was just screaming at her sometimes, like, "Mom, we can have one conversation." But like I said, I really trust her intuition in this game, and she's a legend after all. And I just follow her lead. And at most of the times, we were really separated. For the few times that we did get to click together, it was always one of those beautiful moments, and I felt like I was back at home. But I quickly had to realize that I had to snap out of that feeling because you can't get too comfortable in there, because I would have just been sleeping in the comic room since day one, you know what I mean? And just kicking it with her and just having fun. So she really helped me separate the game from our personal for sure.
Who's playing the best game in the house so far? Not who you want to win, because I think we all know the answer to that. But
Yeah.
if you were just going to analyze this game from what you know, who's playing the best so far?
Honestly, it's funny because that was a conversation I was having with a lot of the house guests this past week, and I was just trying to get a feel for how people felt about where everybody was and how everybody was playing the game. And not to be cocky here, but my name came up a lot, and also Cameron's name came up a lot. Personally, I always put Cameron ahead of me. Just Cameron was a competitor, and Cameron was also able to see a lot of things before they happened. I'm sure everybody caught some conversations where he told me exactly what was going to happen to me after him. And me just being a little naive and thinking that my move was the safest move to do. Obviously, I didn't follow his advice, but I truly do feel like if I was to follow Cameron's advice, I would probably still be in the house right now.
Hmm. If you could, maybe that's the answer, or maybe it's something else. But if you could go back and change one thing about your game, which anyone who doesn't win this game does, right? If you
Yeah.
could go back and maybe zig where you zagged, maybe would have put you on a different path, what would that change be?
It's really only one thing that comes to mind when I think about changing my game for the better. Obviously, everything that happened in my game made me into the player who I was, and I was happy and grateful to be that player. And I was content with the player that I was. But if I could change absolutely one thing, it would be not using Cameron as a replacement nominee. Cory was taken down at that point, so I knew it was going to be someone versus America. And once again, I think my lack of knowledge of the game and just underestimating Cory and America's relationship was to my fault. And I should have put somebody next to America to pretty much guarantee her way out the door. Therefore, even if I did follow her up and get evicted after that, America was the one I would be battling in this resurrection.